Mr. President, I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into a colloquy with my colleagues from Delaware and Ohio for up to 30 minutes.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I just say that we're going to be talking about something here. It's one of those rare, all too rare occasions anymore where we all agree, and it's about making things. We want to talk for the next few minutes about what happens in our country, what needs to happen so that we can not just make things again, because we still make lots of things and we make them very well, but what do we need to do to be able to make more things? What do we able to do to be able to be sure that we're at the competitive front of the line as we work to make things? All of us are working on things together. Senator Brown and I have been working on advanced manufacturing. I know it's something he has talked about. We have talked about together. He has been a leader on for a long time, and all of our states benefit. Missouri and Ohio have certainly been among the significant manufacturing states. In Missouri, we have more than $32 billion a year in manufacturing. For about the last 4 years, that's been the top manufacturing employee has been in the agricultural industry and in food processing, but transportation equipment, fabricated metals, machinery of all kinds, automobiles have been in the top of our manufacturing sectors. But I think we're really at a point where so many things could easily come together, and the federal government and the Congress can help to make those things together by taking down barriers, by creating easier ways to work together. In the case of advanced manufacturing, this is something, the centers of excellence that we've talked about, we've worked on, we've both seen some of these work, and I'd just like to ask Senator Brown some of the things he's seen and the things that we think we could better do by the legislation that we've been talking about. Senator Coons, I'd like to say that your point is well made, that these jobs, manufacturing jobs, are good jobs. You know, the American workforce is competitive. As Senator Brown said, we've always been on the cutting edge, the outside of competition, making things in a better way than we did last year. You know, everybody that's competing today is trying to figure out how they can do whatever they did last year better. And we see that, and what we can add to that, how you can make that process work better. In our state, the average manufacturing job pays 21.5% more than the average wage. So 21.5%, that $52,000 or so, that's the average manufacturing job in Missouri, is a significant improvement in where you might otherwise be. We have 6,500 manufacturing firms. Almost 250,000 people work in manufacturing, and we used to have more than that. And I think we'll have more than that again. The country used to do more in terms of manufacturing than it does now, but we're going to see that happen. You just wrote an article in Congressional Quarterly that talked about the things that need to be done, the great opportunities we have in energy. We take advantage of those great energy opportunities. Suddenly the utility bill is more predictable. The delivery system is more guaranteed. I was talking to a manufacturer today in my office, and this topic came up at some point now, as you get more and more further and further into innovation, people not only have to be better trained, you talked about that too, the importance of the skilled workforce, but the workforce, how the workforce competes with maybe a lower paid workforce in some other country, maybe not nearly as important as how the utility bill competes. If you can run that facility, and I just gave him an example of another manufacturing facility in my hometown in Springfield, Missouri. It was making a significant expansion, I think about $150 million expansion, but they didn't expect to hire any more people, but they expect to use that current workforce in a much more competitive way. Nobody was losing a job because of advanced competition. They're just expanding that workforce in a way that ensures that they'll keep their job, be more competitive. Of course, somebody, by the way, is building that expansion. There are jobs there as well, and those all matter. We have all kinds of examples. Perryville, Missouri is a town of less than 10,000 people who live there. And in that town, it's become a hub. It's about 80 miles south of St. Louis, a hub of 21st century manufacturing. So A Japanese company is there, Toyota Gozai, that it makes plastic components for automobiles. Saberliner makes aviation parts and is in the airplane industry. Gilster Mary Lee, a much more traditional employer. But here's a town that has a significant number of manufacturing jobs, a town of Cassville near Springfield, for a number of years had more manufacturing jobs than they had population. Now, of course, that meant in the part of the country where I live, lots of people may have been driving a significant number of miles to get to those jobs, but there aren't very many cities. This is a smaller community. It's the county seat of Berry County, but more manufacturing jobs than people that lived in the community itself meant that that's a competitive community. That's a community that knows how to build jobs. Perryville is a community that's really launched itself well into the 21st century. And the skills you were talking about, the skilled workforce, the energy needs, the research component. You know, one of the components of these hubs of excellence that we've been looking at and talking about, Senator Brown and I have been working on, is to create ways to encourage higher education to be part of that, to encourage higher education to be part of that research component. And I think Americans are eager to make things again. I bet you and I both hear the same thing over and over again. How can we have a strong economy if we don't make things? Well, you can have a strong economy, parts of the economy that don't make things, but I think not only do you need to make things, but there's something that really defines who we are in a positive way when people see Americans making things that not only are heavily competitive here, but are competitive all over the world. And I think that's the kind of thing, Senator Coons, you and I are talking about, the kind of bipartisan effort we need to make. I don't run into any Republicans or any Democrats anywhere or any independents who said, oh, we don't need to worry about making things. We don't need to worry about a competitive economy. Actually, private sector jobs should be the #1 domestic goal of the federal government today. And the jobs we're talking about are a significant component of that because they lead to lots of other jobs. All of the ripple effect of manufacturing jobs is great. The other businesses that spring up, the suppliers that come, and of course, your state, your family. I know your father, you and I have talked about that, was a significant part of launching new things into the marketplace. And so I think that's the kind of thing that you and I want to see this Congress encourage, as we can encourage things without law and look for legislative ways to facilitate a growth back toward manufacturing. Let me talk just a little bit about the Startup Act that you and I have worked on, Senator Coons, and you mentioned, I think, all the co-sponsors of that, Senator Rubio, Senator Stabenow, Senator Moran, Senator Kaine, Senator Schumer, and Enzi. And what that does is try to extend the opportunity of research and development to startup businesses. The way that tax credit works, if you can deduct those costs from the taxes you pay. But if you're a startup business, you often don't have any profit to deduct from. That's part of the courage, frankly, of starting a business. You're almost ensured, guaranteed that for the first weeks, months, sometimes the first years, depending on how big a venture this really is, you're not making money yet. And so what you and I and our friends have done in the Startup Act is say, but these people would have employees. And so what we do is allow the same tax credit for a big corporation or a big business or a highly successful business with lots of profit. We allow that same tax credit to be applied against what they pay as taxes for their employees, the Social Security tax, the other taxes that are paid. And again, trying to encourage innovation. We all know that small business is the engine that drives the country, but it also can be the small business that drives it can be the engine that drives manufacturing if we figure out a way to let them have some of the same benefits that existing businesses have that have already gotten themselves in a profit-making situation. This just gives them a place to go and utilize that credit. And that's the kind of thing we ought to be looking at. Startup businesses are important, encouraging traditional businesses to figure out how to upgrade their equipment, upgrade the way they do things so they're more competitive in an international marketplace. And I really do firmly believe that for reasons you mentioned, the wage gap is not what it was. The transportation costs are more than they were to get something made from somewhere else back to the greatest market in the world, the United States of America. And the more we know about the utility bill, Senator Donnelly from Indiana, who's here in the chair today, and I've been working on things that pay attention to the utility bill. Again, that's a key component of future manufacturing. The more competitive you are, the more innovative you are, the more you're likely to be concerned about that part of your input cost. And sometimes when you expand, the utility bill is a bigger thing to look at than the additional labor cost. But that may be exactly what ensures that you can keep the labor you have and grow that labor by being able to make a commitment that you feel good about because you feel good about your ability to run that facility once you build it. You feel good that not only is it going to work this year, but by the way, we're doing so well and doing so many things that 10 years from now, we feel like that whatever the utility costs are going to be, they're going to be within the range that we could deal with and still make things right in Missouri, right in Ohio, right in Delaware or Indiana. And that's the kind of thing we ought to be focusing on. How do we make things again? How do we create other kinds of private sector jobs, the #1 domestic priority of the country today? And every time you and I talk about manufacturing, I really do get excited about an America that is thinking about not are we going to be able to continue to make what we've always made, but what can we make better than anybody else that we're not making yet that's going to allow us to be out there in a world marketplace. Trade has become a much greater opportunity for the American workforce as all of these other factors that we've been talking about on the floor have come together to make our workforce what it is. And if you have any final remarks, Senator Coons, I'd like you to finish up our time here on the floor.